Hey, it's Mrs. Wagner here. We're going to do the Algebra 1B Plus lessons from 511 to 524. So this packet that I'm looking at right now. So I just want to say hello to all my students. Hope you guys are doing great. I have this friend that keeps on trying to cheer me up. He says, it could be worse. You could be stuck underground in a hole that was full of water. I know he means well. Yeah. Okay, so that's your little joke. Moving along, this is our week 5 and week 6. We're going to look at tables, and then all different types of data displays. So you might be happy about that. I don't know. The first thing that we're going to look at is reading a table. So we have incomes from 8 different professions. You see that professional basketball player is very, very high. And it doesn't say what year this was, but I don't think this was recently. There are 8 values listed. So if you have to find the mean, if you remember, that means average. You want to take all these numbers together, and then you add them, and then divide by how many you have, which is 8. So it gives me this as an average salary. So if you look at it, it looks crazy because the mean is actually larger than every other income except for baseball player. I said basketball at first, but it's baseball. Okay, looking at this table, we look at Matt and Linda. They start their year with 15 vacation days. This shows how many each of them had left. So they started with 15. So you look here, and he had 14 left in January, and then 11, and so forth. So what's the difference between the interquartile ranges of Matt's remaining and Linda's remaining days? Well, in order to do that, the first thing you want to do is find the median. So you would take 8 plus 11, and you want to divide by 2, and that gives you 9.5. You take 6 and 10, and divide by 2, and you get 8. So next we want to find the lower quartile and the upper quartile. So the lower quartile would be, if this is half the data, and then this is half the data, then I would take 6 plus 8 and divide by 2, and that would give me 7. For this one, it would be 0 plus 6 divided by 2 and give me 3. So that gives you your lower quartile. The upper quartile would be looking at this amount. So actually, we don't really need the median for this, do we? So we would take 11 plus 14 and divide by 2, and we get 12.5. We would take 10 plus 14 and divide by 2 and get 12. So in that case, now we see the upper quartile minus the lower quartile, and that gives us our interquartile range. So finally, if we wanted the difference between Matt and Linda, we would take the higher one, which is 9, minus 5.5, and you get 3.5. So that's a difference between their 2 interquartile ranges. Alrighty, so looking at the next one. So the next one we have Mike, Shannon, Layla, and Rachel are recorded and all their grades that they had for that amount of time. So if you look at the range, you want to find the highest minus the lowest. So if we're just looking at Shannon here, so let me just highlight Shannon. I'm looking at the highest for Shannon, which in this case is 85, minus her lowest grade, which is 72. And I would get a number for that. And in this case, it is going to be 13. So I'm going to write 13 down there. For all the students, the highest and the lowest, well, if I look at all these numbers, I look for the highest number, it's going to be 96. So it's going to be 96, which I have right there, minus the lowest or the smallest of all these, which is right here, 65. So I would take 96 minus 65, and I would get 31. So 31 is what you would get in that case. Okay, so I have different places where you can go online and read some tables online if you'd like to. And I think that's the first place where I have some links for you to click on. Moving down to this next table. So Kathleen has gathered all her test scores for the semester. As a comparison, she asked her friend Joey for all his test scores. So we take a look at all these scores. How does the range of Kathleen's test scores compare to the range of Joey's test scores? Well, first we have to find the range of Kathy and the range of Joey. So let me just look right here. And we have, I'm going to put Kathleen here, and I find that her highest score is 87. The biggest number here, if I look at all the Kathleen's scores, is 87, minus her lowest score, which is 53. And then I want to figure out what that is, and that turns out to be 34. So I'm going to write 34 for that. Then I'm going to say, well, what, oh, sorry about that. So then I'm going to say, what is Joey? Well, here's Joey's scores right here. It looks like his highest score is 95, so I'm going to put 95 minus, and then I'm going to look here for his lowest score, and he also has a lowest score of 53, and I'm going to do that subtraction, and I'm going to get 42. So now I'm going to see if I can answer the question. The range of Kathleen's score is greater than the range of Joey's score. Well, it's not. Kathy's is lower, so it's not A. The range of Kathleen's score is less than the range of Joey's. Okay, so that could be true by 8 points. So 42 minus 34 is 8 points, so B is the correct answer. Okay, so that's how you would do it. You would figure out what the range would be, and then you would answer the question. So now we're going to move on to histograms. Oh, it's not letting me do anything with that, which is fine. So Jim is helping raise money for his church by doing face painting. So by reading the histogram to the right, we can see that there was 1 2-year-old. Okay, so this is the age. So you have 1 2-year-old. You have 3 3-year-olds. You have 4 4-year-olds. You have 5 5-year-olds. You have 6 6-year-olds. You have 7 7-year-olds. But then you have 3 8-year-olds. You have, looks like just 1 9-year-old. It looks like it's between 9 and 10, but I'm just going to say 9-year-old. So if we count how many we had 1, and then we had 3, and then we had 4, and then we had 5, and then we had 6, we had 7, then we had 3, and then we had 1. Those are all the number of customers we had. So we had 30 people that came in. The mean age is adding up all the ages multiplied by the number that each age appears. And then you would have to divide by how many you have. So I have 2 1-year-olds, so 2 times 1, 3 3-year-olds, 3 times 3, and so forth. That gives me 170 is the ages, all added together. But then I have to count how many I have. I have 30 people that I'm talking about, 30 kids. So it'd be 170 divided by 30, which is 5.7. So 5.7 is the mean age. To find the mode, we see what age appears the most. So you can see that 7 is the highest, so 7 would be the mode of all the ages. So looking at this histogram right here, we see that a company made a bar graph showing the amount of sales. So in May, it looks like there were about $45,000 in sales. Okay, because it says thousands of dollars, right? So let me just write that down. Oh, no, I did. Okay. So in May, there's about $45,000. In June, there's 9,000, because remember, this is in thousands. In July, there was about 35,000, and in August, there was 7,000. To find the median, we put them in order from least to greatest. So we have this amount, this amount, this amount, and this amount. Well, there's 4, so there's actually 2 numbers that are in the middle. So I have to take 4,500, or 4,500, plus 7,000, add them together, and divide by 2. And that tells me what my median is. So it says, why don't you try this one? Given this bar graph to the right and the days of snow for 4 months, what is the mean number of days of snow? Okay, so let's just take a quick look at that. All right, so I'm just going to look at my data here. So we have 2 days of snow, right? And then we also have 6 days of snow. And then we also have 14 days of snow. And then we have about 3 days of snow. So if I take all those numbers and I add them together, I get 25. So 25 is my total number if I add all those days of snow. But I have to divide by how many I have, because remember, mean means average. So then I would take my 25 and then I would divide by 4. Okay, so I want you to try that and see what you get. Again, 25, and that's going to be divided by 4. All right. So that gets us to the end of that week. So I'm going to cut it right there, and I'll put out another video for the next week. Hope you guys are doing well. Love ya.